All right, Phil and Ryan on Listen Up, presented by Dempsey and Sportsland. Ryan, we learned the news this morning. She passed away, passed away yesterday. Former Storm center Simone Edwards dies at 49. So rest in peace to Simone Edwards, one of the greats in Seattle Storm history.
Yeah, and also played for the Liberty as well. And I learned this morning she was the first Jamaican player actually to play in the WNBA. So, yeah, rest in peace to Simone Edwards, incredible center, like you said, for the Storm and the Liberty as well. So, rest in peace, Simone Edwards.
All right, last check-in presented by Dempsey's and Sportsland as we have Villanova on the regular season schedule coming up tomorrow, Ryan, at 2:30, I believe. So we'll be back here around 4:30, approximately 4:30 for the game recap. Ryan, it's interesting because I told you weeks ago, I'm like, Ryan, I think the only game left on this regular season schedule that proves to be tough is Villanova. I think every game down the stretch now proves to be tough. And I don't think a lot of people at the end of this video will like the predictions.
Well, I mean, you said that right for sure. I mean, I don't think many of us thought that these games would be as close as what they've turned out to be. But before I start the last check-in here and talk a little bit about Villanova, I want to say what a game last night, Thursday night. It was Louisville and Notre Dame. I watched some of it when I was at work and watched the end of it when I got home.
Overtime,
Yeah, Notre Dame came back to force overtime, and then Olivia Miles hit a buzzer beater for the win. The home crowd went wild. Great game between those two teams last night. But like you said, the long-awaited second matchup between the top two teams in the Big East is here. We only had to wait 3 weeks for the second matchup, but since then, UConn has lost 2 games, and Villanova has won their last 5 games since their loss to UConn. So they're only 1 game back now of UConn and the Big East standings. Both the teams also have the same overall record at 23-4.
And how often are the Huskies? I mean, by now the Huskies, the old time Huskies, if you will, they by now you would still see a 0 under the loss column, right? Am I wrong?
Yeah, and they haven't. I don't think they've lost two conference games since 2013. I think if I remember that stat correctly. So this is a big game, and all the rest of them that we have left are big for sure. But this time the game's in Pennsylvania. Is the comeback victory last time for UConn, 63-58. Caroline was also not available for that game, and she will be playing in this game on Saturday, which I think is going to make a huge difference. She made a huge difference in that Marquette game, had a couple of clutch shots there at the end. But I think Lou as well struggled with her shot. She only shot 2 of 13, so I hope she has a better shooting performance and carries some of that momentum from the Creighton game.
That was a game. That was a game that they had. They titled it, the AP article said, this time Connecticut had Aubrey Griffin because she put in 19.
Yeah, and now on the Wildcat side as well, Maddie Siegrist had her own struggles shooting the ball, but she was still able to get 25 points, and that kind of goes back to what Gino said about her, which is if she has a bad night, she'll score 25, and if she has a good night, she'll score about 40. So I think UConn just needs to try to limit Maddie again as much as possible. Nika and Aaliyah are good defenders. I think they can get the job done. But also for Villanova, I think the emphasis is going to be their 3-point shooting. Last game, they only made 4 out of 21 of those 3-point shots, along with Siegrist, Lucy Olson, and Maddie Burke are usually the players that are major threats from outside for Villanova. And I want to also see UConn play tighter defense on the perimeter. Don't allow them to get wide open shots. No easy buckets in this game. And one more thing I want to bring up for both teams is the rebounding. Rebounding is going to be huge in this game. UConn last time, they only won the battle by 3. and Villanova had more offensive rebounds. So if UConn gets out rebounded badly in this game, I don't think it's going to result. I don't think the ending's going to have a positive result at the end for the Huskies.
All right. Yeah. And there, you said it right. I mean, there's really only one thing to say about this game. And that's about this last check-in. Usually it's not that easy. It's more complicated breaking down a roster and what needs to happen to earn a win. But I mean, Ryan, it's Maddie Siegrist. I mean, what else? What else do you want me to sit here and say?
Well, I mean, she dropped 50 the other night, and then I think she had another 38-point performance against St. John's. So, like we said already, she's a very, very special player, very gifted and talented offensive player as well. And like I said, I mean, just try to limit her, but it's almost impossible to stop her from scoring at least 25 points, like we saw in the last game. She has a bad shooting performance. She's gonna score points by driving the lane, getting fouls, and getting free throws. So, but I think that there's also offensive threats like I just mentioned with Maddie Burke and Lucy Olson and a couple other players. So you can't leave those players open from 3-point range or just allow them to get easy driving lanes. Sometimes like we saw in the Marquette game. UConn would just leave them with easy driving lanes, and there's a lot of miscommunication. So that's something as well. I think UConn can do a better job at is the communication on the defensive end, and that hopefully that doesn't allow for open and easy shots for Villanova.
Let's just be aware that I don't think no other team in the whole country is going through what UConn is as far as the fatigue and the injury. So at the end of the day, I get it. Outside of Connecticut, nobody's going to feel sorry for you. But let's just not forget that. Let's just not forget that. I mean, these Huskies are battling. I've had comments and then predictions. Then we'll get on out of here, Ryan, and get ready for this big, big matchup. Jason D'Amico, I want to clarify my statement about Park Lane from Seton Hall. I have nothing against her. She is an amazing player, especially for her size in a game of giants. But the truth is, she is the best player Seton Hall has, and Maddie is not the only threat Villanova has. Yes, 50 points is impressive, but not so much against teams like Seton and DePaul. I will say it again, when Maddie puts up those kinds of numbers against a ranked team when it counts, I will take back my statement. Until then, she is beating up on much weaker opponents. Well, I guess the story will unfold tomorrow before our eyes.
Yeah, and Jason, I think this is one of the first times I actually disagree with you on this podcast. Because I want to make the comparison that if one of the UConn players scored 50 points against one of the weaker Big East teams, I don't think we'd be saying sitting up here after in the game recap saying it doesn't matter. So I think it does matter, and it was a huge accomplishment for Maddie to become the all-time leading scorer in the regular season for the Big East. So I mean, I think that goes for any player. I mean, when any player scores 50 points, no matter who they're playing, whether it's against a 20-win team or a team with no wins or only one win. I mean, I think it's a huge accomplishment. So I'm gonna have to disagree with you this one time, Jason.
How about a C Terrier? Dorka is extremely valuable for UConn. However, you're overestimating what she accomplishes for the team. She's averaging double digit in scoring. It's because of her outside shooting. Review her game and notice how many low post point blank shots she misses. This was true last night. Additionally, she does a poor job on offensive rebounding. Aaliyah also does not do a great job with offensive rebounding either. Now, UConn wouldn't be 6th ranked team without Dorka, but Dorka should be playing better than she is.
Yeah, that's a good point. I completely agree with that. And you can see some of the frustration, especially with Gino. When Dorka gets the ball inside, he's expecting either a bucket, a foul, or both of those things to happen. And there was many times in that game against Marquette And, it's really been prevalent, I think, during the whole season that sometimes Dorka and Aaliyah are having trouble scoring inside the low post. And I think that just goes back to they were pretty dominant, in the beginning of the season, early in the season. And like I said in the game recap, I think a lot of these teams are starting to devise their game plan around stopping UConn from doing that and stopping Aaliyah and Dorka from scoring inside the paint. But I think that just means for Dork and Aaliyah, they just need to be even more aggressive and like I said, bully those players down low and find a way. If they don't score the bucket, at least try to get fouled. So, but it's going to be a really important part of UConn's game moving forward is scoring inside. Because not every night you're going to get the three ball rolling and make every shot from down low, from downtown. And that's really not a huge part of UConn's game either, is shooting the three. And most of the time they do rely on those driving shots and scoring in the paint.
And what has me concerned, even though they have been winning a lot of the close ball games, UConn has been coming out very slow. I mean, they've what in the when they had lost back-to-back games for the first time since 93, they had like 10 points in the first quarter. That is not going to cut it against some other high-powered teams. That's what has me concerned, because I get it. It's not how you start, it's how you finish. Okay. But at the same time, what if you're playing a powerhouse team, Ryan, and they're throwing up another 30 plus, let's say, on you while you're still facing a deficit where you haven't even reached 20 yet by the end of one?
What and we saw against Tennessee, UConn can definitely score in the first quarter. They scored 33, but yeah, it's definitely important that to come out swinging and try to build some momentum to go into the later quarters. And I think that's kind of been a problem for UConn all season long. I think either the second or third quarter is one of their worst. I think it's the second that's usually their worst, but it has been a struggle of late in the first quarter. I know in the Georgetown game and the Marquette game, even though they won both of them, they were trailing both of those games in the first quarter at the end of the first quarter. So it's definitely important to come out and build a little momentum in the first quarter.
All right, predictions. Man, I'm not going to be liked after this statement. I guess, Ryan, I guess I told you what I was going to do, and I had to stick to my word. I'm going 63 to 60. 63 to 60. Villanova over UConn. I think a home court advantage is a big one in this matchup. And of course, Maddie Siegrist. There's other players on this roster. I get it, other than Siegrist. But I think that she may go off. Now, I'm not saying 50 plus or 50 again, but oh man, I can't believe it. 63 to 60. Villanova over UConn on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm expecting a really competitive game. I think we all are. More of a defensive game, I'd say. Tough physical battle. Really everything we saw in the last game and everything you would expect from these two Big East teams. Villanova has caught fire since the loss to UConn, and the Huskies have lost two and really had to claw their way to some of these wins to be able to win some of these games. I think this is a game where Villanova knows they can win. And I think they're really expecting to win this game. I also think UConn, they definitely want to win this game as badly as Villanova does. And I think that despite the return of Caroline Ducharme, I think Villanova takes this game as well. I have to say Villanova 66 to 63 over UConn.
Oh my, you're taking Villanova tomorrow, Ryan. Is that right?
Yeah, and we both have similar scores again.
Similar scores
It's
again.
every time we have similar scores, we never discuss them. I'm only going three more for each team on both sides.
Well, unfortunately, I have to tell you goodbye. It's always tough, Ryan. But again, we'll meet again soon. You know, that favorite, that number one cousin that everybody just wants to have so bad. And I tell you what, I don't take you for granted, man. All your hard work, It's been a pleasure on this Friday morning. And Ryan, yeah, I mean, arguably the last game on the regular season schedule that really has a lot of meaning to it, and one of the more heavyweight matchups, if you will. It's Phil and Rye. Join us tomorrow, 2:30, so approximately 4:30 for the Connecticut and Villanova game recap. Hopefully, Ryan, it's a happy one. Presented by Dempsey's and Sportsland. Ryan, I'll see you tomorrow.